The rooftop venue glowed with amber light, the kind that made everyone look like they belonged in a magazine spread. It was one of those parties thrown by people who never worried about budgets. Crystal chandeliers hanging in open air, champagne fountains that never ran dry, a DJ flown in from somewhere unpronounceable. The Seoul skyline stretched out beyond the glass railings, towers lit up like a promise. Mina had been dragged here by friends who operated on a different frequency than she did. They wore heels that could double as weapons. They knew which bartenders poured heavy and which security guards could be charmed. Mina wore a black dress she'd owned for 3 years and shoes she could actually walk in. She wasn't miserable. Just observing. Her friends had already made a game of the night. They always did. Dares mostly. Harmless things that felt dangerous when you were 3 drinks in and the music was loud enough to drown out second thoughts. Jisoo leaned close, her breath smelling like strawberries and vodka. See that guy? Mina followed her gaze across the dance floor. The music pulsed, bodies swaying in clusters, but her eyes found him immediately. He stood near the edge of the crowd, not quite in it, not quite out. Dark suit, no tie. Black hair swept back in a way that suggested either effortless style or complete indifference to style altogether. He wasn't dancing. Wasn't drinking. Just watching. What about him? Jisoo grinned, sharp and mischievous. I dare you to grab his hand and drag him onto the dance floor. The other girls erupted into giggles, the kind that came more from anticipation than actual humor. Mina glanced back at the man. He hadn't moved. There was something about the way he stood, still but not stiff. Alert without tension. Like he was the only person in the room who wasn't trying. That's it? That's the dare? That's it. It seemed ridiculous. Harmless. The kind of thing that would either end in laughter or a polite rejection. She'd done worse on previous nights. Fine. The girls squealed. Mina handed her drink to Hannah and stepped away from their little circle, weaving through the crowd. The bass thrummed in her chest. Bodies moved around her, a sea of perfume and cologne and heat. As she got closer, she noticed details. The way his suit fit, tailored, expensive. The way people seemed to give him space without realizing they were doing it. The way his gaze moved across the room in slow, deliberate sweeps. She didn't hesitate. Hesitation would have killed the momentum. Mina walked right up to him, reached out, and closed her fingers around his hand. His skin was warm. His hand didn't move. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. He went completely still. Not tense, just utterly motionless, like a predator that had just registered movement in the periphery. She tugged gently. Come on. His eyes met hers. Dark, unreadable. There was no smile, no confusion, no irritation. Just focus. Like she'd done something far more significant than grab a stranger's hand at a party. Then he moved. He let her pull him forward, his steps smooth and unhurried. He didn't resist. Didn't ask questions. Just followed. The crowd parted. Mina didn't notice at first. She was too focused on not tripping, on the warmth of his hand in hers, on the absurdity of what she was doing. But as they reached the center of the dance floor, she felt it, the shift. People weren't dancing as close anymore. Conversations had paused. Eyes tracked their movement, subtle but unmistakable. She turned to face him, releasing his hand. The music pulsed around them, something slow and heavy with a rhythm that made the air feel thicker. He stood there, hands loose at his sides, watching her. Up close he was even more striking. Sharp jawline, dark eyes that seemed to see more than they should. There was no aggression in his expression, no arrogance. Just calm. The kind of calm that didn't come from peace, but from absolute certainty. Mina started to sway, mostly to justify dragging him out here. She wasn't a great dancer, but the music made it easy, just movement, just rhythm. He didn't dance. Not really. He moved enough to not look ridiculous, a subtle shift of weight, a slight tilt of his head. His eyes never left hers. It should have been uncomfortable. A stranger staring at her like that, unblinking, unsmiling. But it wasn't. There was no malice in it. No hunger. Just attention, pure and focused. She felt heat rise in her cheeks. Around them the space had widened. She noticed it now. A circle of emptiness in the middle of a crowded dance floor. People still moved, still laughed, but no one came close. And then she saw them. Men in dark suits scattered throughout the crowd. Not dancing. Not drinking. Just standing. Watching. Their eyes weren't on the room. They were on him. Her pulse kicked up, though she didn't know why. The man in front of her tilted his head slightly, a question without words. She swallowed. Thanks for the dance. He didn't respond immediately. Just held her gaze for another long moment, as if committing something to memory. Then he gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. And he walked away. Not rushed. Not slow. Just deliberate like everything else about him. The crowd closed behind him like water. The men in suits followed, silent shadows peeling away from the edges of the room. Mina stood there, alone in the center of the dance floor, heart hammering for reasons she couldn't name. Jisoo appeared at her elbow, eyes wide. What the hell was that? Mina shook her head. I have no idea. But her hand still tingled where his skin had touched hers. Mina returned to her friends, but the lightness from earlier had evaporated. The girls were talking over each other, voices pitched high with excitement and confusion. Did you see the way everyone moved? Who even is that guy? Mina, you just walked up to him like it was nothing? She accepted her drink back from Hannah, took a sip. It was watered down now, the ice melted. She didn't care. It was just a dare. But even as she said it, she knew it wasn't true. Something had happened out there. Something she didn't understand. Jisoo grabbed her arm. Look. Across the venue near the private booths that overlooked the dance floor, the man stood with 3 others. They weren't talking. Just standing in a loose formation, attention angled toward him. One of them leaned in, said something. The man didn't respond, but his posture shifted, barely, just a slight turn of his shoulders. The other man stepped back immediately. That's weird, right? Hannah whispered. That's definitely weird. It was. The whole dynamic felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly. Just off. Like watching a film where the sound didn't quite match the picture. Mina tried to focus on her friends, on the music, on anything else. But her eyes kept drifting back. He never looked at her. Not once. But she had the strangest feeling that he knew exactly where she was. An hour passed. Maybe more. Time felt slippery in places like this, stretched thin by alcohol and bass drops. Mina's feet hurt. She was considering calling it a night when she felt it. A presence at her back. She turned. A woman stood there, older, elegant. Designer dress, diamond earrings that caught the light. Her smile was polite, but her eyes were sharp. Excuse me. May I speak with you for a moment? Mina's friends went quiet. The woman's tone wasn't rude, but it carried weight. The kind of voice people listen to. Sure. The woman gestured toward a quieter corner, away from the speakers. Mina followed, heartbeat picking up again. When they were out of earshot, the woman turned to face her. Up close, she was beautiful in a severe way. Perfectly composed. I saw what happened earlier. On the dance floor. Mina's throat went dry. It was just a dare. My friends? The woman raised a hand, gentle but firm. I'm not here to scold you. I'm here to make sure you understand. Understand what? The woman's expression softened, just slightly. Something almost like sympathy flickered across her face. The man you pulled onto the dance floor. His name is Kang Jiho. Do you know who he is? Mina shook her head. The woman studied her for a long moment as if deciding how much to say. He's someone you don't touch. Not without invitation. Not without understanding what that means. A chill ran down Mina's spine. I didn't know. Of course you didn't. That's the only reason this conversation is happening instead of something else. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Who is he? The woman smiled, sad and knowing. Someone whose hand you don't take lightly. Be careful, dear. Attention from men like him doesn't fade quickly. And then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd with the same silent grace she'd arrived with. Mina stood there, skin prickling, trying to process what had just happened. She looked back toward the private booths. Kang Jiho was gone. Mina couldn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the evening in fragments. The warmth of his hand. The way the room had shifted. The woman's warning, delivered with surgical precision. Someone whose hand you don't take lightly. She grabbed her phone, the screen's glow harsh in the darkness. Her fingers hovered over the search bar. Then she typed, Kang Jiho Seoul. The results loaded. Her breath caught. The first few links were business articles. Investments, real estate, hotels. Legitimate operations, or at least things that looked legitimate on the surface. But as she scrolled deeper, the tone changed. Forum posts. Speculation. Whispers. Kang family controls half the district. You don't do business in Gangnam without their approval. Old money, old power, old rules. There were no photos of him. Not recent ones anyway. Just mentions, references, threads that led nowhere concrete. She clicked on a news article from 4 years ago. A charity gala. In the background of a photo, barely visible, a younger version of him stood beside an older man. The caption identified the older man as Kang Tae-min, described as a prominent businessman and philanthropist. The article didn't mention Jiho by name. Mina closed the browser, heart pounding. She grabbed the hand of someone who existed in the spaces between things. Someone powerful enough that people didn't say his name out loud. And she'd done it on a dare. The absurdity of it would have been funny if it weren't so terrifying. She thought about the way he'd looked at her. No anger. No threat. Just focus. And the way he'd walked away without a word. She turned off her phone and pulled the blanket up to her chin. Sleep didn't come for hours. The next day was Sunday. Mina worked at a small cafe in Hongdae, the kind of place that served overpriced lattes to art students and tourists. It was familiar, comfortable. A world away from rooftop parties and men in tailored suits. She was halfway through her shift when Jisoo burst through the door, eyes wild. "You're not going to believe what I just found out." Mina set down the cup she was wiping. "What?" Jisoo leaned across the counter, voice dropping to a whisper even though the cafe was nearly empty. "That guy from last night? Kang Jiho." Mina's stomach tightened. "What about him?" "My cousin works security for a firm that handles private events. High-level stuff. She says the Kang family is basically untouchable. Like, people don't even look at them wrong." "Jisoo." "Mina, you grabbed his hand. In public. In front of everyone." "I know. Do you though? Do you get what that means?" Mina exhaled slowly, trying to keep her voice steady. "It was a dare. It's done. It doesn't mean anything." Jisoo stared at her, something between concern and fascination in her eyes. "My cousin said people have gotten hurt for less." The words settled like stones. Mina forced a smile. "Well, I'm fine. See. Nothing happened." But even as she said it, she remembered the woman's warning. Attention from men like him doesn't fade quickly. The week passed. Slowly, then quickly. Work-sleep routine. Mina told herself it was over. A strange night, nothing more. But she caught herself looking over her shoulder on the subway. Scanning faces in crowds. Wondering if someone was watching. No one was. Life continued. And then, on Friday evening, as she was closing up the cafe, wiping down tables and stacking chairs, the door chimed. She looked up. Kang Jiho stood in the doorway. He wore different clothes, dark jeans, a simple black coat, but the presence was the same. That absolute stillness. Mina's hands froze on the chair she was holding. He stepped inside, the door closing softly behind him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, quietly, almost gently, he broke the silence. "I came to apologize." Mina set the chair down carefully, her pulse thrumming in her ears. The cafe felt smaller with him in it. Not suffocating but compressed, like the air had thickened. He didn't move closer. Just stood near the entrance, hands in his coat pockets, posture relaxed. She found her voice. "Apologize for what?" His eyes held hers, steady and dark. "For whatever happened after you touched me. I imagine someone spoke to you." Her throat went dry. She thought about lying, brushing it off. But something about the way he looked at her, direct, patient, made dishonesty feel pointless. "A woman. At the party. She warned me." He nodded slowly as if this confirmed something. "I'm sorry for that. It wasn't necessary. She said you were someone whose hand I shouldn't take lightly." A flicker of something crossed his face. Not quite amusement, not quite sadness. She wasn't wrong. Silence stretched between them. Outside, the street was busy with Friday night energy. People laughing, music from a nearby bar, the hum of traffic. Inside the cafe, it was just the two of them in the quiet. Mina crossed her arms, more for something to do with her hands than out of defensiveness. "So why are you here?" "To make sure you understand something." He took a single step forward. Not threatening, just closing distance enough to be heard clearly. "What happened at that party, you pulling me onto the dance floor? It was unexpected. But it wasn't unwelcome. I followed you because I chose to. Not because I was obligated. Not because I was offended." She searched his face, looking for the lie, the angle. Found nothing. And the people who reacted? The warning? They're protective. Sometimes too much so. "Of you? Of what I represent." The phrasing was careful, deliberate. He wasn't denying anything, but he wasn't offering details either. Mina leaned back against the counter, trying to process. "I looked you up." His expression didn't change. "I assumed you would. The internet doesn't say much. That's intentional. Are you dangerous?" The question came out before she could stop it. Blunt, direct. He considered it, head tilting slightly. "That depends on perspective. To my enemies, yes. To people I care about, no. And to strangers who grab your hand on a dare?" Something softened in his eyes. Not quite a smile but close. You stopped being a stranger the moment you touched me. The words landed with unexpected weight. Not possessive. Not a claim. Just a statement of fact delivered with quiet certainty. Mina's heart kicked against her ribs. I don't understand what's happening. Neither do I. Not completely. He pulled his hands from his pockets and for a second she tensed, but he just gestured vaguely, almost helplessly. I came here to apologize and to give you a choice. What choice? Whether you want this to end here. If you do, I'll leave. You'll never see me again. My people won't approach you. It'll be as if that night never happened. The offer hung in the air, genuine and unervingly final. And if I don't want it to end? His gaze intensified, searching her face. Then we see where this goes. Slowly. On your terms. Why slowly? Because once you step into my world, it's hard to step back out. I won't pull you in without you understanding what you're choosing. There was no romance in the way he said it. No seduction. Just honesty, raw and unadorned. Mina swallowed hard. This is insane. Yes. I don't even know you. No. But you want to. It wasn't a question. And he wasn't wrong. She thought about the week she'd spent looking over her shoulder. The way his touch had lingered in her memory. The strange pull she'd felt standing across from him on that dance floor. If I say yes, if I want to know more, what does that mean? He exhaled, and for the first time she saw something like relief in his features. It means we talk. Have coffee. Dinner maybe. I answer your questions. You decide at every step whether to continue. And if I want to stop? Then you stop. No consequences. No pressure. He said it with such finality that she believed him. Mina ran a hand through her hair, laughing softly at the absurdity. This is the weirdest conversation I've ever had. His mouth quirked. Almost a smile. I imagine so. She looked at him, really looked. Saw past the stillness and the intensity to something underneath. Loneliness maybe. Or exhaustion. The kind that came from carrying weight for too long. Okay. His eyes sharpened. Okay. Coffee. Questions. We'll see. For a moment he didn't move. Just stood there, absorbing her answer like it was something precious. Then he nodded. Tomorrow? If you're free. I work until 3. 4 o'clock then. There's a place in Samcheongdong. Quiet. She almost asked how he knew she'd like quiet, but the answer was obvious. He'd been watching. Not in a creepy way. Just noticing. I'll be there. He moved toward the door, then paused, hand on the handle. Mina. Her name in his voice was different. Softer. Yes. Thank you. For the dance. And then he was gone, disappearing into the Seoul night like he'd never been there at all. Mina stood in the empty cafe, surrounded by chairs and the smell of coffee, and wondered what she'd just agreed to. The cafe in Samcheongdong was exactly as he'd described. Quiet. Tucked into a side street, small enough that it probably survived on regulars rather than foot traffic. Traditional architecture mixed with modern minimalism. Wooden beams, white walls, plants and ceramic pots. Mina arrived 5 minutes early and found him already there, seated at a table near the window. He stood when he saw her, a gesture that felt old-fashioned but natural coming from him. You found it okay? GPS exists. That almost smile again. They sat. A server appeared, took their orders without small talk. Americano for him. Latte for her. When they were alone, Jiho folded his hands on the table, waiting. Mina decided to dive in. So, Korean Mafia. That's the rumor. He didn't flinch. The term isn't quite accurate, but it's close enough. What would be accurate? Organized power structure. Old families with old agreements. Business, politics, territory. Some legal, some less so. The honesty was disarming. And you're part of this because? I was born into it. My grandfather built what we have now. My father expanded it. I inherited responsibility whether I wanted it or not. Did you want it? He was quiet for a moment, considering. When I was younger, I thought I did. It felt like purpose. Now I'm not sure. The server returned with their drinks. They waited until she left. Mina wrapped her hands around the warm cup. Why tell me this? Why not just, I don't know, let me think you're a regular businessman? Because if we continue seeing each other, you'll find out eventually. Better you hear it from me. Better you choose with full information. Most people would lie. I'm not most people. No, he really wasn't. She took a sip of her latte, gathering thoughts. The woman who warned me. Who was she? My aunt. She handles family politics. She was protecting you in her way. Protecting me from what? His jaw tightened slightly. From being associated with me without understanding the cost. What cost? He leaned forward, voice low and serious. Visibility. Once people know you're connected to me, you become leverage. A target for people who want to pressure me. A subject of gossip and speculation. Your privacy disappears. The weight of it settled over the table. And you're telling me this because? Because I won't let you walk into that blindly. If this continues, if we continue, there will come a point where I'll need to acknowledge you publicly. To my family, my associates. It's the only way to protect you properly. But doing that changes your life fundamentally. He held her gaze, unflinching. I won't take that choice from you. Ever. Mina felt something shift in her chest. Not fear. Something else. Respect maybe. Or the beginning of trust. So what are you saying? That we can't actually do this? I'm saying we can. But slowly. With clear boundaries. And the moment you feel it's too much, you walk away. No guilt. No consequences. She studied him. The set of his shoulders. The intensity in his eyes. He meant every word. You're really serious about this? About you having a choice? Yes. No. About me. His expression softened, just barely. Yes. The single word carried more weight than entire speeches. Mina set down her cup. I don't understand why. We danced for 3 minutes. We've had one conversation. I know. That's not an answer. He exhaled, a rare show of something like frustration. I don't have a better one. All I know is that when you took my hand, something shifted. I can't explain it. I'm not asking you to understand it. I'm just asking you to let me figure it out. It was the most unguarded she'd seen him. And if I say yes to that, to figuring it out together, what does that look like? More of this. Conversations. Time together when you're willing. I answer your questions. You set the pace. And your world? The organized power structure? I keep it away from you as long as possible. You don't meet my associates. You don't come to family events. Not until you're ready. Not until you choose it. That's going to cause problems for you. Let me worry about that. Mina leaned back, processing. Outside, a couple walked past the window, holding hands, laughing about something. Normal. Uncomplicated. This was neither of those things. But it was honest. I need you to promise me something. He nodded. If I say stop, you stop. No convincing. No arguments. It just ends. I promise. And if your world starts bleeding into mine, if I feel unsafe, you'll fix it. I will. She believed him. Which was either the smartest or stupidest instinct she'd ever had. Okay. Relief washed over his features, subtle but unmistakable. Okay. We'll see where this goes. Slowly. He reached across the table, palm up. An offering, not a demand. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed around hers, warm and sure. Thank you. They sat like that for a moment, hands linked across coffee cups and unspoken promises. Then Mina squeezed once and pulled back. So, tell me about you. Not the family business. You. And for the next 2 hours he did. 3 weeks passed. Coffee became dinner. Dinner became walks along the Han River. Walks became late-night phone calls that stretched past midnight. Jiho kept his word. No pressure. No rush. Just time, given freely and without expectation. Mina learned things. Small things that felt significant. He read constantly, history, philosophy, novels he'd buy on impulse and finish in a day. He had a scar on his left hand from a childhood accident involving offense and poor judgment. He hated crowds but loved the ocean. He was unfailingly polite to servers, drivers, anyone in service positions. And when he laughed, rare but real, it transformed his entire face. She also learned what he didn't say. He never talked about his work in detail. Never mentioned names unless necessary. Never brought her anywhere that might expose her to his world. He was building a wall between his life and hers, and she could feel the effort it required. But cracks were starting to show. It started small. A phone call during dinner, his expression going distant as he listened. An apology, a promise to call her later. He always did, but the calls came later and later. Then the tension in his shoulders. The way his jaw would tighten when his phone buzzed. The increasing frequency of those buzzes. One evening they were supposed to meet for dinner. He canceled an hour before, voice clipped and tired. Something came up. I'm sorry. Is everything okay? Pause. It will be. He didn't elaborate. She didn't push. But the pattern continued. Canceled plans. Delayed responses. A distance that felt less like choice and more like necessity. Mina told herself it was fine. He'd warned her. This was his life. But worry crept in anyway. When they finally saw each other again for days later, he looked exhausted. They met at the same cafe in Samcheongdong. He arrived late, which wasn't like him, and when he sat down, there was a heaviness to his movements. I'm sorry. You keep saying that. I keep meaning it. She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. Talk to me. He stared at their joined hands, jaw working. My family is getting impatient. With what? With me. With this. Her stomach dropped. They know about me? Not details. But they know I've been distracted. Unavailable. And that's a problem. In my world, yes. There are expectations. Responsibilities. People depend on structure, on my presence. When I pull back even slightly, it creates instability. Mina pulled her hand back slowly. You're saying I'm a problem. His eyes snapped to hers, sharp and immediate. No. I'm saying the situation is complicated. Because of me. Because of everything. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration bleeding through the cracks in his composure. There are people in my organization who think I'm being reckless. That I'm jeopardizing operations for personal reasons. They're not entirely wrong. So what are they asking you to do? His silence was answer enough. Mina's chest tightened. They want you to end this. They want me to make a choice. Commit fully to my responsibilities or acknowledge what's pulling my attention and bring it into the fold. Meaning bring me into your world. Yes. The word landed like a stone. She sat back processing. And you don't want to do that. Not until you're ready. Not until you choose it. But they're not going to wait for that. He met her eyes and she saw the conflict there. The weight of obligations pulling against something else. Something newer, more fragile. No. They're not. Outside rain had started. Soft at first, then building. The sound filled the silence between them. Mina spoke carefully. What happens if you don't choose? The pressure increases. Meetings become confrontations. Patience runs out. And then? Then I make the choice anyway, under worse circumstances. She absorbed that, the inevitability of it. What do you want? The question seemed to surprise him. What do I want? Yes. Not what they want. Not what's logical. What do you actually want? He was quiet for a long time. Rain streaked the windows. Someone laughed at a nearby table, the sound feeling impossibly distant. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I want more time. With you. Like this. Her heart clenched. But we don't have that. No. Mina looked down at her hands, thoughts racing. This was the moment. The point he'd warned her about. The line between casual and consequential. She could walk away. End it now, before it became something that couldn't be undone. Or she could step forward. Tell me what it means. Really. If I say yes to being part of your world. He leaned forward, voice low and serious. It means people will know your name. Your face. Where you work, where you live. It means protection but also visibility. It means my enemies become aware of you. It means family dinners where politics are discussed in code. It means adjusting your life to accommodate mine. And the good parts? Something flickered in his eyes. You'd be under my protection. Completely. Anyone who wanted to hurt you would have to go through me, and they won't. You'd have access to resources, security, and you'd have me. For as long as you wanted. It sounded like a business proposition. Cold. Transactional. But the way he looked at her, like she was something rare and breakable, told a different story. I need to think. He nodded immediately. Of course. And I need you to be honest. If I say no, if I walk away, will that cause problems for you? Yes. The admission was stark. What kind of problems? The kind where my authority is questioned. Where people see weakness. Where I spend the next year proving I'm still capable of leading. But you'll be okay. I'll survive. It wasn't the same thing as being okay, and they both knew it. Mina stood. Jiho rose immediately, instinctive. I'll call you. Tomorrow. With an answer. He didn't try to stop her. Didn't plead or pressure. Just nodded. Whatever you decide, I'll respect it. She left the cafe, stepping out into the rain without an umbrella. The cold water soaked her hair, her clothes, but she barely felt it. Behind her, through the window, she could see Jiho still standing. Watching her walk away. Not following. Giving her the choice. Just like he'd promised. Mina didn't sleep. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, turning it over and over. The smart choice was obvious. Walk away. This wasn't her world. These weren't her problems. She'd known him for less than a month. That wasn't enough to upend a life. But every time she decided to end it, she thought about his hands. The way he'd looked at her across that table, exhausted and honest. The late-night phone calls where he'd ask about her day like it mattered more than anything else. The careful way he'd built space for her to exist without obligation. He'd given her something no one else ever had, absolute choice. And somehow that made the choice harder. She called Jisoo. It's 2 a.m. I know. I'm sorry. Pause. Rustling sounds. Jisoo's voice came back clearer. What's wrong? I need advice. About the Mafia boss? About Jiho. Same thing. Mina exhaled. He's asking me to make a choice. To either walk away or commit to being part of his life. Really part of it. And you're actually considering the second option. Yes. Silence. Then. Are you insane? Maybe. Mina, this is not a drama. This is real. This is dangerous. I know. Do you? Because from where? I'm sitting, you're about to throw your life away for a guy you barely know. The words stung because they were true. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm just considering possibilities. Possibilities that involve organized crime. He's not a criminal. He's not a criminal. Mina sat up, rubbing her face. Jisoo. I'm not calling for you to talk me out of it. I'm calling because I need someone to tell me I'm not crazy for wanting this. A long pause. I can't tell you that. Why not? Because I think you are crazy. But I also think you've already decided. Mina's throat tightened. What makes you say that? Because you're not asking if you should do it. You're asking for permission to want it. And you don't need my permission, Mina. You need to be honest with yourself. The truth of it hit hard. I'm scared. You should be. This is scary. But I want it anyway. Then do it. But go in with your eyes open. And for God's sake, make him promise to keep you safe. Mina smiled despite everything. He already has. Then maybe he's not completely terrible. He's not. Jisoo sighed. Call me tomorrow. And if this goes sideways, I'm saying I told you so. Deal. They hung up. Mina sat in the darkness, feeling something settle. She'd made her decision. Now she just had to tell him. She called at 9 a.m. He answered on the first ring. Mina. Can we meet? Today? Where? The cafe. Noon. I'll be there. He was already seated when she arrived. Same table, same posture. But his eyes tracked her movement with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. She sat. Didn't order anything. I have conditions. His expression didn't change, but something sharpened in his gaze. I'm listening. If I do this, if I step into your world, I need to know I can still leave. Not easily, maybe. But possible. I won't be trapped. You won't be. I need you to keep me safe. Actually safe. Not just protected but informed. If there's danger, I need to know about it. You will. And I need time. To adjust. To learn. I won't be thrown into the deep end. You'll set the pace. She took a breath. And I need you to promise that this, us, isn't just about obligation or pressure from your family. That you actually want this. He leaned forward, eyes locked on hers. I want this. I want you. Not because of pressure. Not because of obligation. Because when I'm with you, I feel like myself. Not the role I play. Not the expectations I carry. Just myself. The raw honesty of it nearly broke her. Okay. His eyes widened slightly. Okay. I'm in. Slowly. On my terms. But I'm in. For a moment he didn't move. Just stared at her like she'd said something in a language he was still learning to understand. Then he reached across the table, palm up. She placed her hand in his. His fingers closed, gentle but firm. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might drive you crazy. That almost smile. I'm counting on it. They sat like that, hands linked, the weight of the decision settling between them. So what happens now? He considered. Now I tell my family. Make it clear that you're under my protection. That anyone who wants to reach me goes through proper channels, not through you. And they'll accept that? They'll have to. The certainty in his voice was absolute. When? Tonight. There's a meeting. I'll address it then. Mina's stomach flipped. That fast. The longer I wait, the more complicated it becomes. He squeezed her hand. But you don't have to be there. You don't have to meet anyone until you're ready. This is me handling my world so it doesn't touch yours until you choose. What if they want to meet me? Then they'll wait. Simple. Final. She believed him. Okay. Do what you need to do. He raised her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. The gesture was old-fashioned, almost courtly, but it sent heat through her entire body. I'll call you after. Be careful. Always. He stood, reluctance in every movement. Jiho. He paused. Thank you. For giving me the choice. His eyes softened. Thank you for choosing this. And then he was gone, walking out into the Seoul afternoon with the weight of what came next on his shoulders. Mina sat alone at the table, hands still warm from his touch, and wondered if she'd just made the best or worst decision of her life. The meeting was held in a private room at a high-rise in Gangnam. Neutral territory technically, though everyone knew who really controlled it. Jiho arrived exactly on time. His uncle, 2 cousins, and 4 senior associates were already seated. The atmosphere was tense, expectant. He didn't sit. I'm here to inform you of a decision, not to discuss it. His uncle, Kang Jiho, raised an eyebrow. That's not how this works. It is now. Silence. Sure. Dangerous. Jiho continued, voice even. There's someone in my life. Her name is Mina. She's under my protection, effective immediately. Anyone who approaches her without going through me answers to me directly. No exceptions. One of his cousins, Minsik, leaned forward. You're putting a civilian under family protection? For what? A girlfriend? Yes. That's insane. That's my decision. Dae-young studied him, eyes calculating. And if we refuse? Jiho met his uncle's gaze, unflinching. Then I step down. You find someone else to run operations. I'll transfer what I control, assist with transitions, but I'm done. The room went still. You're bluffing. I'm not. Minsik laughed, sharp and disbelieving. You'd throw away everything grandfather built for some girl you've known for a month? I'd rearrange my priorities, yes. That's not how leadership works. Then maybe I'm not the leader you need. Dae-young raised a hand, silencing Minsik. You're serious. Completely. His uncle sat back, expression unreadable. You realize this makes you look weak. Compromised. To some, maybe. To others, it shows I'm willing to prioritize what matters. And she matters more than this? Than family? She matters differently. And I'm tired of pretending that's a weakness. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. One of the associates, an older man named Park, spoke up. If we agree to this, if we extend protection, what's to stop every member from bringing in their personal attachments and demanding the same? Nothing. If they're willing to stake their position on it like I am. That's chaos. That's evolution. Jiho stepped closer to the table, hands loose at his sides. I'm not asking permission. I'm informing you. Mina is protected. Period. What you decide about my role here is secondary. Dae-young studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. Thin but genuine. You've changed. Yes. Because of her. Partially. And you think that's a good thing. I think it's necessary. His uncle nodded slowly as if confirming something. You'll stay on. Full authority. But if this compromises operations, we revisit. Fair. And we meet her. Eventually. On neutral ground. Jiho hesitated, then nodded. When she's ready. Agreed. The tension in the room shifted. Not gone but changed. Acceptance grudging but real. Minsik still looked furious, but he stayed silent. Jiho inclined his head. Thank you. Don't thank me. Prove this wasn't a mistake. I will. He left the room, heart hammering, hands steady. In the elevator, alone, he exhaled. It was done. He pulled out his phone, typed a message. It's handled. You're safe. Her response came immediately. Are you okay? He smiled, small and private. I am now. 2 months later. Mina woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar curtains. For a moment, disorientation. Then memory settled. Jiho's apartment. His bed. His arm draped across her waist. She'd stayed over twice now. Both times at her own pace, her own decision. He stirred beside her, pulling her closer in sleep. She relaxed into it, the warmth, the safety. They'd found a rhythm. Slow like he'd promised. Dinners at his place or hers. Movies that he'd fall asleep during, waking up embarrassed and apologetic. Walks where he'd hold her hand like it was something precious. He'd introduced her to exactly 3 people from his world. His driver, his assistant, and his aunt, the woman who'd warned her that first night. The aunt had been surprisingly warm, approving even. You're good for him, she'd said quietly when Jiho stepped away to take a call. I haven't seen him this settled in years. Mina still worked at the cafe. Still lived in her apartment, though she spent more nights here lately. Nothing had been rushed. Nothing forced. It was just life. Together. One evening, 3 months in, they were cooking dinner. Or rather, she was cooking while he watched, offering commentary that was more amusing than helpful. You're supposed to stir it. I am stirring it. That's folding. It's the same thing. It's really not. She pointed the spatula at him. You're banned from the kitchen. He raised his hands in surrender, grinning. The grin still surprised her. How easy it had become. How often it appeared. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned slightly. I need to take this. Go ahead. He stepped onto the balcony, sliding the door closed. Through the glass, she watched him pace, expression serious. Work probably. It always was. But when he came back in, he looked calm. Everything okay? Fine. Just logistics. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. Smells good. It's pasta. It's hard to mess up. You'd be surprised. She leaned back against him, content. Jiho. Do you regret it? Choosing this? He was quiet for a moment. No. Never. Even when it's complicated? Especially then. He turned her around to face him, hands gentle on her waist. You know what I regret? What? Not dancing with you longer. That first night. She laughed. We barely danced at all. Exactly. He pulled her close, swaying slightly even though there was no music. We should fix that. Now. Why not? So they danced in his kitchen, barefoot, with pasta sauce simmering on the stove. Slow, easy movements. His hand on her back. Her head on his chest. It was nothing like that first dance. No crowd. No tension. No danger. Just them. Mina? Yeah. Move in with me. She pulled back enough to see his face. What? Move in. Officially. Bring your things. Make this home. Her heart stuttered. That's a big step. I know. And if you're not ready, we wait. But I want you here. Not just visiting. Living. She searched his eyes, looking for doubt. Found only certainty. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. She thought about her tiny apartment. Her space. Her independence. Then she thought about waking up next to him every morning. About this becoming routine. About building something permanent. Okay. His eyes widened. Okay. On one condition. Anything. I get half the closet. He laughed, real and full. Deal. He kissed her then, slow and deep, and she tasted joy in it. Relief. Home. When they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Thank you. For what? For grabbing my hand. That night. She smiled. Best dare I ever took. Best dance I ever had. Outside, Seoul glittered. Inside, pasta was definitely burning. Neither of them cared. 6 months after that first dance, Mina stood in Jiho's apartment, their apartment now, and looked around. Her books on his shelves. Her photos on his walls. Her coffee mug next to his in the cabinet. It wasn't perfect. His world still had sharp edges. There were still phone calls he took in another room. Still meetings she wasn't part of. Still moments when the weight of his responsibilities pulled him away. But he always came back. And she'd learned to navigate it. The protection, the protocols, the occasional appearance at family events where she smiled and let his hand on her back remind her she wasn't alone. His family had accepted her, mostly. Some warmly, others with reservation. But Jiho's authority held, and no one questioned her place beside him. She'd quit the cafe eventually, after someone had shown up asking questions about her schedule. Jiho had been apologetic but firm. Her safety mattered more than independence, at least in this. She'd found work she could do remotely. Consulting, writing. Things that gave her freedom without exposure. It was compromise. But it felt worth it. 1 year to the day after that first dance, Jiho took her back to the rooftop venue. It was closed for a private event, their private event. Just the two of them and the Seoul skyline and a single musician playing something slow. Dance with me. She took his hand. They moved together, natural and easy. A year of learning each other's rhythms had made it effortless. Do you remember? He asked quietly. Every second. I was terrified. She pulled back to look at him. Of what? That you'd let go. That you'd realize what you'd done and run. I thought about it. I know. But I didn't. No. You didn't. He stopped moving, cupping her face in his hands. I love you. I should have said it sooner, but I'm saying it now. I love you. Her breath caught. I love you too. He kissed her, gentle and certain, and the city stretched out around them like a promise. When they pulled apart, she smiled. So, was it worth it? All of this. He didn't hesitate. Every single moment. She rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady. Come. Home. Thank you for not letting go, he whispered. Thank you for following. They danced until the music ended. And then, because they could, they danced some more. In the years that followed, they built a life together. Not the one either of them expected, but the one they chose. Jiho gradually shifted his role in the organization, delegating more, stepping back from the parts that required darkness. He remained powerful, respected, but on his own terms. Mina learned to exist in both worlds, the quiet domestic life they shared, and the occasional formal event where she stood beside him, poised and protected. They traveled. They argued. They grew. And sometimes, late at night, when the city was quiet and they were alone, she'd take his hand and pull him close. Dance with me. And he always would. Because that's where it started. With a dare. With a choice. With a touch that changed everything. And some things, the best things, are worth following through darkness to find. They found each other. And they held on.